Ragewing Xayah is back with a new version after the mid-set expansion, and in this video, I'll teach you how to master this comp by going over the build, what items and augments to take, how to play the early, mid, and late game, and then I'll go over some in-depth positioning examples. The build is pretty flexible, and we can run a couple of different versions depending on what we hit, but these are our 4 core units for the comp. Xayah is our main carry, Twitch is in there to give us swift shots and to shred armor of the enemy team, Shyvana is our secondary carry and gives us 4 Ragewing, Jace is in there to give us shapeshifters and to give us additional guilds. Since Shyvana is a dragon, we have 3 more slots here, and we have a couple of different options of units to add in. The standard level 8 version of the board looks like this, where we add in Hecarim, Rakan, and Sejuani. Here we get 6 Ragewing, and we also get more frontline, utility, and guild from these stats. If you are a newer player or just getting started with this comp, then I would recommend aiming for this version in your games, as it's simple but also very strong. Another option is to add in Zippy and another guild champion, which is preferably Bard. This gives a ton of bonus stats to our team, and we get in a decent tank with Zippy. You want to aim more for this version if you have really strong items for Jace or Shyvana, and if your Xayah items aren't the best this game. If you don't hit Shyvana, you can aim for this board where you run Idas as your main tank, and add in more guilds to buff up Xayah and Jace. Another build without Shyvana is this, where you add in Yasuo, Siphon, Hecarim, and Pantheon, where Pantheon or Siphon is your main tank, and you have a secondary carry in Siphon and Yasuo. There are other things that dictate which units you should play, like which items and augments you have, as well as which units you hit. And I'll talk more about that, as well as what you add in at level 9, and other ways to change our comp based on our augments later in the video. Xayah is our main carry, so we prioritize making items for her first. She has 1 core item, and that is Rageblade. This item allows Xayah to maintain high attack speed while not in rage mode, and it will stack up very fast with our traits. The second and third items want to be damage items like Giant Slayer, i.e. Last Whisper, Hurricane, and Deathblade. Do not be greedy with your items, as Xayah uses all 5 of these very well as her second and third items. Some items are better than others in certain lobbies, but in general, if you can make one of these 5, just make it. There is no clear best in slot Xayah items, as the best in slot changes based on if you get value from Giant Slayer or not, and how many people have Bramble Vests that block your IE damage, and so on. Some of you might be wondering why QSS is not mentioned here. This is because there is overall less CC in set 7.5, so we don't get much value from QSS. Therefore, you want to avoid building that item on Xayah. Here are some examples of final builds for Xayah. Again, the only core item is Rageblade, and make whichever you can out of the last 5 items here as her last 2. After you've made Xayah items, you want to make tank items and Shyvana items. Shyvana wants AP items. Since she drops aggro with her ult, she will not do a good job tanking. Here is a tier list of the best Shyvana items. Note that IE has to be paired with JG to be good, and you want to put these items on Jace if you don't hit Shyvana right away. And here is the tier list for the best tank items. These go in either Jace or Hecarim. Which you pick depends on who you find and 2-star first. If you get a Spatula, you have 2 good options with both Swiftshot Spat and Cavalier Spat. Swiftshot replaced Ragewing Spat in set 7.5, and it is made with Bow plus Spat now. Additionally, Swiftshot is a 2, 3, 4, 5 trait now, which makes it very good to slap on Rakan or Hecarim to make them ult faster. Cavalier Spat is also good to put on both Rakan or Jace for more tankiness, assuming you are running at least Hecarim and Sejuani already. The best augments for this comp are Best Friends, Cavalier Heart or Emblem, Cybernetic Implants, Cybernetic Shell, Guild Heart or Emblem, Item Grab Bag, Ragewing Heart or Soul, Shapeshifter Heart or Soul, Swiftshot Heart or Emblem, Weak Spot, Component Grab Bag, Loot Master, Portable Forge, Press the Attack, Scorch, Tantrum, Irv's Grab Bag, and Radiant Relics. I mentioned a lot of augments there, and the best ones out of those are Best Friends, Ragewing Heart or Soul, Shapeshifter Heart or Soul, Weak Spot, Loot Master, and Press the Attack. If all that info was a lot to take in, then check out the cheat sheet for this comp. It's available for patrons and YouTube members. Here is the quirky cheat sheet from the last set, so you know what to expect for the Ragewing Xayah cheat sheet that is available right now. The carousel priority for this comp is Bow, Sword, Glove, then Chain. The best opener for this comp is to play Cannoneers with Cavaliers. You pick either Senna or Aphelios as your carry. Some other openers that also work are Swift Shots with Cavaliers, or Wukong with Jades. Once we have found our comp, we need to make items. Xayah is not item dependent as mentioned earlier, as she only needs Rageblade. Therefore, you can slam Rageblade and any other AD item in the early game. You also want to make tank items. I tend to avoid making AP items for Shyvana in the early game, as it makes it harder to pivot if I have both AP and AD items made, as there are very few comps that can use both of those items together. Additionally, you do not need AP items on Shyvana to do well. As long as you have 3 items on Xayah and some tank items, you will do fine in a lot of games. From there, your early game strategy will depend a lot on how good your opener is. In some games you play for a loss streak, and in some games you play for a win streak. And if you want to learn more about how to play the early game, check out my guide where I go in depth on the subject. After the Krugs round, you should have more direction towards a comp. The general requirements to play Xayah is to have at least one component for Rageblade and another component for another Xayah item. Additionally, we really want to have a team where we can easily play Sejuani and Twitch if we're not doing so already, since they can be hard to hit when rolling at level 8. We want to make sure we keep them around when we find them in the early and mid game. During the mid game, you always hold on to Xayah, Hecarim, and Jace if you're not playing them, and you want to hold the other units as well if you don't lose eco for holding them. If you're weak in the mid game, you can either roll at level 6 or 7 to stabilize. If you roll at level 6, this can be done on stage 3-2, where you want to roll for a Cavalier frontline and some guild units as well. The best mid game boards to stabilize with that level 6 are Senna with Cavaliers and Ragewings, or Swiftshot with Cavaliers. If you want to roll at level 7 instead, you can do this on either stage 3-5 or 4-1. Which you pick depends on how much HP and gold you have. I generally wouldn't recommend rolling at level 7 with this comp though, as it's pretty expensive, and you won't have the gold or odds to 2-star all your forecasts and to hit Shyvana. Therefore, I prefer to pivot into another AD comp like Whisper Siphon or Jade Shiyu if I'm forced to roll at level 7. If you still want to force Xayah though, and roll at level 7, you want to stabilize off a Xayah 1-star with this board. If you don't hit Hecarim or Jace, they can be replaced by more Cavaliers, or by another tanky dragon like Shiyu, Siphon, or Idis. During the mid game, it's also important to scout. This is so we can see how many other people are playing Ragewing Xayah. This comp can support 2 players at max, since you are somewhat reliant on hitting Shyvana, and that will be hard if there are multiple people playing this comp. If that is the case, you can pivot to another comp like Whisper Siphon or Jade Shiyu. On stage 4-1, you want to be level 7, and from here you have 2 different options. You can either roll at level 7, or you can go for a fast 8. Since our main carry is a forecast, and we want to hit Shyvana as well, rolling at level 8 is a lot better, but sometimes we're just too low on gold and HP to have the luxury of rolling at level 8, so then we just have to roll at level 7 to not fall too far behind. The games where you roll at level 7 are when you're 70 to 60 HP or lower, you're lost streaking, you cannot go level 8 on stage 4-2 next turn, or if a lot of other players are rolling down here as well. When rolling down at level 7 on 4-1, it is very similar to rolling down on 3-5. You want to stabilize off of this board. The goal from there is to go level 8 on 5-1, and then roll for the rest of your comp there. So try not to roll below 10 to 20 gold, as we need the money to go level 8 later in the game. If you decide to fast 8, you have some late game flexibility depending on your augments, but if you have no emblems or hearts, you want to end up with this board almost all of the time. If you get +1 Ragewing, you can drop Rakan and add in a legendary like Bard or Soraka. You can also drop Sejuani, then add in another dragon like Terra. If you get +1 Shapeshifter, you want to drop Sejuani for Gnar. This will make your Shyvana and Jace stupid tanky, as they will get more than double their HP once they transform. There are also some other creative things you can do while rolling. Remember to utilize multiple dragons if you are able to 2-star them, as you only have 4 core units for the comp, and you have 3 free slots that can be used by units you hit and that work together. Once you hit your board at level 8, you have 2 options from there. The first one is to roll for Xayah 3-star at level 8. This is something I don't like to do, as you get great value from just going level 9 instead with this comp, as there are a ton of legendaries you can easily fit in. But if you want to do this, you need to be uncontested and also have at least 6 or more Xayahs after your level 8 rolldown. The other option is to push level 9. You want to do this when you've 2-starred all your non-legendary units at level 8 and you have at least 40 or more HP coming into stage 5. Here you will often add in Bard at level 9 for more guilds, or you will add in Soraka for more healing. Or you can also remove Sejuani to play Terra for more frontline. If you're high rolling and you're able to go level 9 with a lot of gold, the most capped version of the comp looks like this. There are a couple of things to keep in mind when positioning this comp. Firstly, the Swiftshot trait gives more attack speed the farther away they are from their target. Therefore, try and create the largest gap between Xayah and her targets for more DPS. Twitch's spell shreds armor, so make sure to keep him next to Xayah at all times to increase her DPS. If you have Last Whisper in Xayah, then you don't have to worry about this, as Last Whisper shreds more armor than Twitch. Hecarim's CC is incredibly powerful. He will ult in the direction of his target. Keep this in mind when positioning him to get the most value out of his spell. Rakan disarms all of the units he dashes through, and he targets the farthest away within his attack range, which is 2 at default. This can also be really powerful, as you can taunt enemy units and make them ult in the wrong directions. With that said, let's move on to general positioning with this comp, which looks like this. Xayah is in the corner, and Twitch is next to her. Our frontline is shifted towards the left side to increase the length between Xayah and her targets. Hecarim is in the middle, as he usually gets the best ult from this angle. Shyvana wants to be in the middle of your frontline to not get bursted down before she transforms. Now let's move on to some in-depth examples. Against the first guy, the big threat is Olaf and Diana. Rakan is positioned to ult the Pantheon and to dash through and disarm the Olaf. The enemy Hecarim will be forced to target Sejuani and therefore not ult towards our Xayah. Shyvana is towards the right side where she can stay safe and ult. Against the second guy, the big threat is Lee Sin. Rakan is positioned to disarm and taunt Lee Sin to make him kick in the wrong direction. We're forcing Lee Sin to target Sejuani and kick away from our Xayah to keep her alive. Hecarim is stunning the entire enemy team. We also need to make sure we don't have any of our units in the danger zone where Sejuani will be kicked. Against the third guy, the big threat is Xayah. Our Hecarim is stunning the Xayah. The enemy Hecarim is ulting away from our Xayah. Rakan will disarm the Yasuo, Jace will tank the Nunu and stun it, and our Shyvana is away from the Nunu and Yasuo to make sure that she can ult. Thank you so much for watching. If you learned something, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. If you want cheat sheets for any of my comp guides, they are available for YouTube members and patrons, and links to those are down in the description. And if you want to get better at TFT, join the Discord. We got over 9,000 other players there who are hungry to climb. And if you want to get coached by me, the information is over in the Discord server as well. So take care and see you in the next video.